Hello, everyone, and welcome into another edition of Dogs in the Draft. My name is Connor Riley. I'm joined today by Mike Griffith, and today we're discussing one of the big winners of this draft process in Georgia defensive lineman Tyrion Ingram-Dawkins. Now, he doesn't have maybe the flash and upside that, say, a Mykel Williams does, but since starting at the Senior Bowl and then through the NFL Combine, I don't know if there's been a Georgia draft prospect this cycle that has helped himself more than Ingram-Dawkins. Mike, what has turned NFL teams so on the map for Ingram-Dawkins from Georgia?
Yeah, you talk about a high upside and a guy blossoming at the right time. He has been exceptional through the NFL draft process. You mentioned his Senior Bowl performance. He was able to showcase an ability to play inside or outside, did that at Georgia as well. I like the mix of size and speed, and I like the maturity. This was a kid that came to Georgia, the highest rated player out of South Carolina, needed to grow up, had to play behind some great players, and it's hard to develop when you're not the starter, but he really grew as his career progressed. I thought he was key. The fact that we have him as the highest rated Georgia defensive lineman says a lot because there's a couple other veterans that are going to be picked in this draft more than likely. NFL teams are going to note this talent, this upswing. You may not hear analysts talk about him a lot, because I don't think NFL teams really want to be spilling the tea that they have an eye on this guy. So don't be surprised. He could creep up into the second day because of that size, that speed, that reputation that Georgia defensive linemen have. Maybe if he stays another year, he develops into a first-round draft pick, Connor. That's how high his ceiling is, blossoming at just the right time. I'm going to count on the NFL talent evaluators to take note of that. Would not be surprised to see him as a surprise second-day pick.
Yeah, I think this is a guy who does still have quality football ahead of him. And the reason maybe perhaps the slow development at Georgia, one, you just see the number of defensive linemen they put into the NFL in recent seasons. But two, he played largely at that defensive end spot, and that's sort of a thankless role. You don't get to rack up a lot of numbers there. You're asked to sort of hold the edge. But when Mykel Williams dealt with injury early in the season, Ingram-Dawkins looked more than capable of being a disruptive player on that defensive line. As Mike mentioned, could play both defensive tackle and defensive end, and was one of the better testers at this year's NFL Combine. So I think he's a guy who maybe didn't fully tap his potential at Georgia. He is a real credit to the development success because he grew a lot, elected to stay at Georgia instead of maybe transferring and looking elsewhere. Did battle injury a little bit during his early stages at Georgia, which also slowed his development. But I think the big thing with Ingram-Dawkins, as NFL teams have seen both at the Senior Bowl and the NFL Scouting Combine, this guy's best football may be ahead of him. And he's got the upside. He's got the athleticism. He's got a little bit of production, maybe not as much as some teams like, but I think he's played himself from a guy who started this process as maybe perhaps a late round pick, maybe even undrafted, to a guy that's going to hear his name called in the third or fourth round of this year's draft. And it's a testament, I think, to Ingram-Dawkins betting on himself, and that bet seeming to pay off. So that's our breakdown on Tyrion Ingram-Dawkins. He's Mike Griffith. I'm Connor Riley. This has been another episode of Dogs in the Draft, presented by Kroger.